Robert Plank Show, episode 103. Locate money leaks, create prosperity and freedom with Chris Miles. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Robert Plank Show. Today we're going to talk with Chris Miles, the cash flow expert. He's a leading authority on how to quickly free up and create cash flow for thousands of his clients. And how are things today, Chris?
Just fantastic, man. How you doing?
I'm fantastic times 1,000. And you say you're a cash flow expert. So I don't really know what that is. And when I think of cash flow expert, I kind of think of like, I don't know, like Susie Orman, Dave Ramsey, Robert Kiyosaki. Is that kind of along the same lines, or is that different?
Yeah, take like take like Dave Ramsey or Susie Orman, and then totally do the opposite advice that they give, and that's basically what a cash flow expert is.
All right. So
So closer to Kiyosaki, yeah. What I really help people do is like one is increase income, and then two, make sure we get expenses down any way we can, but not to the point where you're living on rice and beans, right?
okay, so not as crazy as Dave Ramsey gets.
Definitely not that crazy. Like it's really about how to have lifestyle freedom, be able to really enjoy the life that you have, and get your money working for you, so you're not always working for your money.
I mean, that sounds good to me, right? Because I mean, you never know. Any day you might get hit by a bus or something crazy might happen.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it, man.
So cool. So I mean, I'm seeing that your average client finds $33,000 per year laying around, and I'm seeing that you have all these skills and all these things you can do for people. And the thing that really jumps out for me is you can tell people how to find $4,000 in 45 minutes. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. It's actually not too hard. That's the funny thing, especially if you're a business owner. Like business owners, they leak more money than anybody that I've seen. Like because it's not just what you can lose at home; it's what you can lose in your business. And I'll tell you, like sometimes the biggest money leaks we have is the money that we never make in the first place, the money that we don't earn, the lost opportunity cost, right?
Right.
Things like that. And so, yeah, I mean, like when I work with somebody one on one, typically I find out $33,000 a year or so. That's pretty average.
So I mean, where the heck does $32,000 come from?
It comes from two places. Well, two general places I mentioned. One, increasing income, or two, maximizing the expenses you're doing. So, for example, one place that's easy that almost everybody will find something is starting to track your money. It's interesting because a lot of business owners I work with, they'll say, "Hey, you know what, Chris? I always thought that the way to financial freedom is just make more money. Like if I just make more money, then I'll solve any money problem I have." But what they're finding out is that as time goes on, the more money they make, the more they end up spending too.
Oh yeah, I've
And
noticed that too.
yeah, it's Parkinson's law. It's human nature. I mean, whatever we tend to have our expenses rise to meet wherever our income is, right? So even if you free up money, you'll end up finding a way to spend that later on and say, "Man, wasn't I just like this a little while ago? I feel just as broke as I was before." And I get a lot of people that say that. And so what I have them do first and foremost is to start tracking their money. A great way to do that in your business, first and foremost, is use things like QuickBooks to kind of track your expenses and income and everything coming in. Don't just look at your expenses, by the way. Don't just try to be cheap, because that's just like the broke, crappy way to wealth. Like nobody saves their way to wealth. Nobody like saves enough money in their little piggy bank to become wealthy. It's about also making money too, right?
Right.
So we want to look at both ends of the spectrum. Make sure we are wise with what we're spending, be wise stewards, but make sure also we're making more money too. And so we look at both. We look at what's coming in and what's going out, both in the business and also at home. When you're looking at home, I recommend tools like mint.com, which is a free website you can use, or phone app you can use on phone app as well. And the great thing is you can see all your finances in one place. So everything downloads there. You can see all your transactions. You can see how much you're spending in which categories, which is so cool. You can see what you've spent for the month and how you're doing and all that kind of stuff. And seriously, it takes only a few minutes a week to do all this. It's funny because I had one client where she was out in the Midwest, and with them, she was spending a couple of hours a week just doing their finances with her business at home. In fact, she was spending so much time on her business, she didn't even worry about the home, which stunk because then they lost money at home too. And once we had them do that, I said, "Hey, listen, guys, like you shouldn't be spending more than like 15 minutes a week, 20 minutes max on both the business and the personal." And cut that down, save them hours and hours and hours a month just doing that.
Just by using the app, you mean?
Yeah, just by using Mint for personal and then QuickBooks for business.
So you're saying that so before this person was using Mint, was she like tracking it on paper or something like that?
Yeah, it's usually like spreadsheets, like Excel programs and things like that, like trying to track it that way and doing it all old school, like looking up the bank account statements online. Which, if you think about it, I mean, think about how many times you go to gas up your car, right? Like you're going to you check out how many transactions you have, and you're like trying to add it up on a calculator or try to put it in, and you're entering all that in. And what if you mess up? Then you have to start over again, and it's a pain in the butt, Like I seriously time myself on Mint just for my personal expenses and income. From logging in to logging out, it took me 4 minutes and 17 seconds to update a week's worth of stuff. I mean,
So,
4 minutes. I mean, that's nothing.
right. So I mean, so how does Mint save time? Because I mean, I've heard of it, I've never used it. So how is that such a time saver as opposed to going back and looking at the bank statements?
Yeah. So the way it is this, like, it downloads all your transactions in one place, and even loans. So any loans, credit cards, savings accounts, checking accounts, everything can show up in one place, right? So you can see your balances all real time. So you don't have to log into different websites to do that. So that's one. And then two, with your checking account, for example, if you're looking at your expenses and your income, you can actually see all the expenses. But the nice thing is that it remembers how you categorize things. So say, for example, you go gas up at Chevron, right, or Arco or something like that. You gas up there. Normally, it's probably going to guess, oh, that's gasoline. It's going to put it into that category for you. So you don't even have to teach it half the time. You occasionally might have to tell it like, oh, it's this category or that, and then it remembers what you categorize it as. So say the next time you go grocery shopping at your favorite store, if it didn't get it the first time, the next time it'll say, oh, groceries. And so what's cool is like you're not doing any of the adding up. It does it all for you. So it'll say, hey, here's what you spent for the month. Has even like a little bar thing that shows you how close you are. If you want to create budgets on there, you can do that too. You can do all that stuff, but it tracks it all for you real time. So
And
that you just have to go in, make sure that it's categorized right. That'll take a matter of seconds, if not a few minutes max. And then voila, you can see exactly what you've spent in every area.
I love that because I mean I've tried doing that before with like all these different bank websites. They
Yeah.
try to help you with that, and you have to do it manually. And same thing, they try to guess, but they never remember. Like if I manually set something, I have to go and
Right.
set it for every single thing. And I mean if I have like different cards and different banks, and there's different websites and different passwords and different interfaces, and I
Uh-huh.
mean I hadn't even thought about until you just mentioned that like man, I mean even just I mean, logging into the different banking sites, even that time is saved. Let alone the category and all the importing and stuff like that.
Yeah, I've had people like actually say, "Hey, I really like using my bank site. It's cool because they do the same thing." I'm like, "Yes and no. Like they can only track what you do through that bank. But if you charge on a credit card that's through something else, you won't ever see that in your bank. Like this says, hey, let's take everything and put it into one place. And just like if you're trying to look at your loan balances, you can see exactly like as you're paying it down what the balance is. So no more logging into 5, 6, 10 different sites. You can see it all right there, real time. It's so awesome.
Well, cool. And so kind of along the lines of what you mentioned a couple of minutes ago, like you kind of mentioned that there's a difference between being a cheapskate and I guess like being wasteful, I guess, right? And so,
Yeah.
I mean, could you explain that or like unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, you bet. So my big thing is I teach people about being wise stewards because if you look at there's really three perspectives around money. There's the spender perspective, right, which we all know. I mean, that's all in scarcity, and it's that's where you blow money. Like if you were given extra money, you blow it, or you blow more than what you were given.
So like the college years, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Now, hard thing with college years because if you were probably broke like most people were, it's not that you maybe didn't want to have money, you just didn't have any, right?
But if
But
you
it
but
depends.
if you had $100 in the couch cushions, it was gone the next day, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, it's like easy come, easy go. It's not, and I'll tell you, some people think they're spenders, and sometimes they're not. For example, I had somebody tell me in an event, they said, "Well, Chris, I'm a spender," and I said, "Well, how do you know?" "Well, because I hate spending money." And that's why I said, "No, no, no. You're not a spender. You're a saver," which is also in scarcity because spenders do like to spend money. Savers don't. And savers will even say, "Oh, I had to spend money on bills, so I'm a spender." No, that just shows how much of a saver you are. You're like so much in scarcity, like you're desperate, like you're the type of person that would make everybody pay for you.
Right, right. Yeah, you're the kind of person that would like fight someone at a restaurant just to like get it like $1 less if you're eating out with a group or something.
Right. You're the Black Friday person that beats the crap out of people, right? So,
Yeah, and I mean, like, yeah, I think that, like, I mean, in my own personal life, like friends and family and stuff like that, I see that. I mean, I see a lot of people just like getting way into debt or buying a fancy car they don't need just to show off. And then on the
yeah.
other, on the saver end of the spectrum, like I'll see every now and then I'll see some like news article about someone who, like, survived on ramen noodles and crackers for 10 years, just and like rented out every room in their house to just to like pay off the house, by the time they were 20. And I'm thinking at first, like, whoa, they must be like a really, like, financially savvy person. But then I read the whole story and I'm thinking, I hope that that era of their life is done, because if they keep being like watching every penny, that seems like a really stressful way to live.
Exactly. That's that right there. I mean, you can never have financial freedom in that place. And I know because I was a financial advisor back in the day. And all financial advice is taught from that saver perspective. It's all in scarcity, and scarcity does not put money in your pocket. It only takes it out of your pocket. When you're living in a place of limit and lack, and you're in fear and everything else, there's no way you'll be financially free. You could put any number in your bank account and you will still be scared. In fact, more money, the more scared you become. Money is only a magnifier of your soul. It only makes you more of who you already are. So to think that, oh, if I just have more money, then I'll be abundant, that's a bunch of crap. It's not true. That's why you have to be a steward first. And see, the stewards, they're in the middle. They take the best of the spender and the saver, they put into one. Because at least savers are willing to be wise. I mean, they do want to do the right thing, but usually their default is I got to save it all or I got to pay off all my debt. That's like their whole focus, right? Is save it all, pay off my debt, and they'll never save enough. They just got to keep saving. But a steward says, okay, I'm willing to use money, but I want to use it wisely in a way that comes back to me at least more than one fold, right? So they're like investors in a way. They're like people that are business owners the way it should be. Like if you're whether you're at home as an online entrepreneur or whatever you do in your business, like you obviously want your money to grow and improve and magnify, and you want to be able to put that back in your business ideally, so you can go and serve more people because dollars follow value, and the more people you serve, the more money you can make. And so that's what a steward does. They let money flow. They don't let us sit there and grow and compound for 5 million years in hopes that they become a millionaire. No, they're saying they're like my brother-in-law who taught me a good lesson when I was a financial advisor. He came from a wealthy family. I remember he telling me after I gave him a nice little presentation, he said, Chris, you're telling me if I give you $10,000, you say you might make me 12% a year or 1,200 bucks in a year. Is that right? I said, yeah, isn't that awesome? Think what that'd be like in 40 years. You'd be like a millionaire, even though he already was. you know,
Nice.
he's like, Chris, but I can take that same 10 grand. I can turn around and a few months later make $20,000 out of that in my business. So why would I invest with you? And I remember thinking like, well, you should be diversified. You should put all your eggs in that basket. That's risky to put all your money in your business. Which he just kind of looked at me and smiled and said, all right, well, cool. Thanks for your time. That was great. And that was it. Like, didn't do any business with me, which is the coolest thing he could ever done. Because that's how stewards think. Stewards think, no, like, what's the best and use I could do with this money and the resources and time that I have to be able to serve more people in a way that it can, the natural byproduct is more money. And then they can take that money and do it again and keep multiplying it and growing it. It's not about letting it sit in some crappy mutual fund or IRA or 401k, let it compound. It's about how do we make it more money with it and create it fast? How can we Mark Zuckerberg it, right? Like
Right. And like invest in yourself.
exactly, exactly. Invest in yourself, invest your business, and then when you get to the point where like a lot of my clients get to, then there's like, okay, I can't even invest this much in my business. Like I've got that extra money sitting around. How can I make that money make me money so then I can create other streams of income as well? And that's things that I work on as well. And so that's the fun part is like there's so many cool things you could do. But when you live in that world of being an abundant steward, you're wise to the resources. You're not just gambling it. There is a big difference. Gamblers will think they're stewards, but in reality, high risk does not create high returns. It's low risk. Investing in things that you can control and that you can create more with. That is what a steward does.
So if someone is like a spender or a saver and they want to become a steward, is there like an easy way to get there? Like, are there a set of steps or guidelines, or is it just like a judgment call kind of deal?
Yeah, absolutely. The best thing you could do is, let's say you're a spender. The best thing you do is become more like a saver. And if you're a saver, the best thing you do is become more like a spender. So spenders, for example, a lot of times they don't let money. They need to almost learn to let money sit for a few months. Just sit there. Sometimes the best thing you can possibly do, as if you're a spender, is start to grow like a little bit of a savings account. It might be just be an emergency fund, but just let it grow. Like just start putting some money away. You
Let
might
the
start
let
with
the
like,
hot money cool off a little bit, right?
yeah, exactly. Because some people, like I mentioned, some people get confused. They think they're stewards, but they're really just gamblers. And I can perceive there might be some people listening right now saying, "Oh yeah, I'm a steward. I'm going to take this money and go make money with it," and then they blow it all and they lose it. Right? That's
Right.
not being a wise steward. Wise stewards make money; they don't lose it. And so spenders got to understand, like, hey, it's okay to let money sit, like you said, let it cool off, and actually build some peace of mind. And you'll find out that you'll hit this new level of abundance you've never hit before. But on the flip side, if you're a saver, you don't need to save more money. In fact, you need to do the opposite. You probably need to see what you can do to take that money and make more with it, and stop sitting on it so long. Now, granted, if you don't know what to do, this is the big thing I teach a lot of my clients. If you don't know where to put your money, the best thing is put it somewhere where it's safe and it's guaranteed you're not going to lose it. Don't throw it in your IRAs or 401ks. Keep it in savings. Keep it somewhere where you can get to it, right? Even if you just keep it in savings. But if you're a saver, it's okay to spend some money. I had one client in North Dakota. He was a chiropractor, and I remember his big thing was like they didn't have much money. They were pretty much paycheck to paycheck. We were actually able to free up over $6,000 a month for him. And what was so cool is that after we had done that, he finally gave himself permission to buy a $6,000 four wheeler.
Cool.
And his wife bawled. I mean, I finally got to meet them face to face, and she was just bawling in gratitude because she said, "You don't understand what this means. Like, he would think he'd always have to keep working his tail off, never give time to his family. And now he's giving time to his family. And that four wheeler, some people might say that's an unwise investment because he's thinking he's blowing $6,000 on a toy." She's like, "But no, that was family time. Like, that means so much more to us than anything he could have spent his money on."
Right. I mean, as opposed to just like growing a number, which, I mean, first of all, like, what are you growing the number to, and what does that get you? Like, if you have $6,000 in the bank versus 6,200, what's the dang difference?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean it's really about, especially if you come from that saver paradigm where he didn't give himself permission to ever spend money. That was big for him. That broke a big, huge fear barrier in his mind, and that allowed him to loosen up and become more like a steward. And I'll tell you, like it makes a world of difference because when you're willing to let money flow, whether you need if you're a spender, let it flow a little bit differently, or a saver, at least let it loose a little bit. What happens is that you'll tend to find that you'll have more income start to come in too, because they're all tied together. How you spend money also determines how you make money too. And I don't want to get too deep into that, but let's just say that, like, just like water, just like blood, money's meant to flow. If you stop that flow in any way, shape, or form, that's where, or you let it bleed out, that's where you run into problems. And so if you want better spiritual health, you want have a lot more money in your life, you just learn to do it in a very healthy way.
So, I mean, so it's like, so there's these two ends of the spectrum, it sounds like, right? Like a spender on one end, saver on the other, stewards in the middle. Like, would you say that like most people are one of the extremes, or are most people in the middle? Like, what are you seeing?
Yeah, most people are one of the two or somewhere. I would say one of the two sides. I mean, they're in scarcity, either a spender or saver, but there's different varying degrees of that. Like, I wouldn't say they're so far extreme. They're using up flat Coke to make bread and things like that. Not
Right.
Depression era quite. There are a
Like
few of those people too.
cleaning your own motor oil or something.
Seriously, yeah, yeah, yeah. Reusing your own motor oil somehow, right? No, it's not like that at all. But most people are on those two extremes. Very few people I ever see have really mastered being a steward, and that's okay. I mean, if you think about how most of us are raised, we're usually raised by parents that are one or the other or both. My parents, my dad was a saver, my mom was more of the spender. She had some steward type uh, inclinations, but she hadn't quite mastered it yet. So I had to kind of learn from two different parents who, like most parents, most couples I work with, they usually come from different ends of that spectrum.
Okay, I mean, and that makes sense. And I think that, I mean, with me, I think that both of my parents both of my parents were savers. Somehow
Mm.
my sister became a spender, and then I was a saver for a long time, and I didn't even realize it. Like I had a period of time when I had 40 grand in the bank, and not even in the whole bank, but it just in savings, and I wanted to buy a $2,000 couch, and I like delayed it for years and years because I couldn't stomach it.
Yeah.
And then finally I just put it on a credit card and then paid it off in like, like over like 4 months. And then kind of that way I had like kind of like it seems like you're alluding to like use money as a tool, right? Like have even though like you could pay off all of the debt or you could you could go super crazy. It's like you kind of manage what you have, I guess, and almost like you're saying like you figure out what you are and then kind of like go in the other direction and kind of like go against your nature because it's better to have the best of both worlds, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's interesting. There's always a price versus cost to money. For example, just in this last year, I went through a divorce, and you ever want to have a way to rock your financial world, just go through a divorce, right?
Oh yeah, I mean
And
permanently, right? Because not only the lawyer fees, but then that recurring income, you got to pay the alimony or whatever.
oh, absolutely. And and for me, it was like then being on my own for first time in years. I mean, because I've got 6 kids and everything. Like I was pretty much was strapped down, and then being on my own. I remember one time I was thinking like, you know what? Like I haven't bought like good whole foods, like eating really healthy. Like we didn't eat bad. Like we always cooked at home and things like that. We weren't eating horribly. But I noticed I'm like, I could get more fresh vegetables and fruits. Like I haven't given myself permission to do that ever, even when we're married. And so I just thought, I'm going to eat more fresh. And it's funny now, like yeah, of course it raised my food bill a little bit, but I'll tell you, like it wasn't nearly that much. It was mostly in my head that those things were happening because I had those saver tendencies, and you hear your dad's brain in the back of your mind, kind of saying things or hearing their voice, and you're like, oh yeah, you got to keep it cheap. I'm like, no, let's get this grocery bill up higher. And I'll tell you, like my productivity and what I do in my business, I work less and make more, and I feel better. And when you feel better, you tend to make more money. And in business, that's huge. And so, I mean, that's why investing in vacations and time away from your business sometimes can be the best investment you make in your business, you know? So
Oh yeah.
be aware of those things. Be aware of what makes you most productive, what makes you the best producer possible. Because really, the other way I find money for people is how to get them to create more value for people. Where can we do that? And because dollars follow value. The more, if you want to create more money, stop asking how do I make more money. In fact, remove that question from your brain. Never ask how do I make more money. Only begin asking how do I create more value for more people. And there's a lot of different ways to do it that sometimes are out in your business, but also outside of your business too. And how you take care of yourself and how you allow yourself to be the best producer possible in people's lives.
And that makes a lot of sense. And I hadn't even thought about it in the way that you're explaining it. How, I mean, not only is there like following the money coming in, the money going out, but also like all this like interrelated stuff and almost like your, whatever that money personality or like your relationship to money at home affects your business and vice versa.
Oh yeah, yeah, they're all intertwined. I mean, your physical health affects your money, your spirituality, and your mental state of mind. Your state of being, things like that. I mean, all these things are intertwined. Your relationships, everything. I mean, they're all interconnected. And so, I mean, when you're looking at trying to create real wealth, you got to look at it in more than just with money. You got to look at it in all areas of your life because I've seen friends who went from having like 100 million plus dollar empires to nothing because they couldn't take care of their health, or they kind of went wayward, and they let their mind take over and do some crazy things, and next thing you know, like it's the money's gone. So and I've seen also reverse. I mean, I've been in situations where I've been in the hole like $1 million, $16,000 in the hole each month. I've been in those places where I had no money, no credit, no savings, and had to battle back and pay off over $900,000 in 3.5 years. And that required a lot of mental and emotional discipline. And I mean, that was huge. That was the stuff that I did. That's not even the stuff that you do with money, because I didn't have money to make money. You don't need money to make money, but you need to be really resourceful to make money, and to really focus on how you provide value best way you can to other people. And when you start to understand those true principles, and you start to combine the strategies with that, that's when everything just works like magic.
So could you explain that a little bit? Like, how do you make money without money?
Well, we all did it. I mean, you mentioned college, right? I mean, if
Yeah.
it really did take money to make money, we would all be dead. Because I mean, we would be trying to search for under couch cushions for money. The thing is, like, if you think about it, like a resume, for example, when you maybe first created a resume once upon a time, when you did a resume, like you're putting the things that don't require money. I mean, you're putting down your skills, your experience, your education, your work history, your references or relationships. I mean, all those things are part of what make up who you are. And the more valuable you are, the more you can charge people for that service, right?
Oh
For
yeah.
that work, for that job. And so it doesn't take money to make money. Like I said, don't ask the question, how do I make more money? But ask instead, how can I create more value in such a way that people want to exchange money with me for that value? And so you have to be really good at figuring out how to solve problems and serve people and add value in such a way that they say, I want that in my life because having you in my life makes my life worth more than not having you at all. Let me exchange these pieces of paper so I can have that more of you in my life.
So
That's really the secret to making more money.
it reminds me of like Think and Grow Rich and specialized knowledge and stuff like that.
Uh-huh. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, specialized knowledge is huge. Generalized knowledge is huge too when you're a business owner because, if you become the CEO of your company, you got to be able to speak all the languages of your different departments. I mean, you got to speak the language of sales. Even if you're not the one selling all the time, you still got to understand that language, that in that world. You got to understand the financial world and speak that language. You got to understand the operations world and and all these other things, right? Like all these things that help make up your business. You got to be able to speak those languages when you're the CEO. And so, yeah, it's specialized knowledge, creating that niche to make you rich, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
But as a business owner, also having enough general knowledge too, so that you can turn around and be able to communicate and work with those relationships, because it is through those relationships you can create more production, more money, more value for more people, because you can't do it on your own. I mean, you could try, and you can go so far doing it on your own, but eventually you're going to need more people to leverage to be able to create something that's bigger, something that's more of a legacy that lasts beyond you.
Like a really good reason why.
Oh yeah, got to have a great purpose, got to have a great reason why, and great people around you to support you.
So if someone was trying to like get in that frame of mind, get in that state, and I mean, if someone was like, I don't know how to even ask this question, but it's like, there's a lot of people out there who just kind of like they've been going on a certain path for a certain amount of time, right, and just stuck
Uh-huh.
in certain habits. So how would someone get from just the place that they don't want to be into being like this, like person in a good money mindset, I guess?
It does take practice, and that's why with my clients, a big part of what I have to teach them is looking at money differently. And that's why I even have my own podcast. I have the Chris Miles Money Show that I do as well, just for that reason, because there's a lot behind that between business and money and everything. But I'll tell you, like one of the coolest strategies that I teach, something you can do every day. It doesn't have to cost you a dime. That will help you change your state each day. Is doing what, if you ever heard of Tony Robbins, the
Yeah.
grand master of personal development. I mean, Tony Robbins, he teaches a thing called the hour of power, right? Some people call it power hour or morning ritual, whatever you want to call it. The thing is, first thing when you wake up in the morning, don't go to your computer, don't go to your phone, like don't go onto technology. Like first and foremost, like get out. Get your body moving. Like I notice when I move my body, like better ideas start to show up. I start to feel better. And when I feel better, I get better ideas. And when I have better ideas, then I can create more value, and that's where I make more money. So I focus on the physical aspect, like make sure I get up and work out. I do maybe more intense stuff than some people do, but heck, if it's just like a walk or it's just don't going up and down your stairs, whatever it does, get your blood pumping. Do that. Wake your body up. Then do things to help control your mind. Start listening to things like podcasts or reading good books and things like that. Meditating or whatever you might need to do. Then even like the spiritual type disciplines too, like prayer or reading scriptural text or again meditation, journal writing, whatever you do that gets you like sharp right from the get go, first thing of the day. You'll find out that you'll get into that top percentile of whatever you're doing compared to everybody else. Because people don't do that. People usually just roll out of bed, they get their cups of coffee in, and then the next thing they're just getting out there and they're on the computer and they've lost the whole ability to create and make more money. And to switch things around, especially if you want to change your state, you got to start changing what you're doing each day. And some of those habits are like things like that. Just doing something simple like that each day. And it doesn't have to be an hour. It could be a half hour. Whatever it is, doing that. I mean, that's the thing that helped me get out of my mess to stay in a good enough mental state so that I didn't have to declare bankruptcy, even though I could have easily have done it. In fact, I've had bankers in the past say when they looked at my credit history, like, yeah, we want to see your history. I'm like, oh yeah, I've got some history. Check this out.
Like
And
how
then
much
they
time
look
you
at it.
got to look at this thing.
I know, and they look at it like, wow, like man, if I saw your situation, I would have told you to file for bankruptcy. I'm like, I know, but I felt like I didn't feel like I needed to. Like unless somebody's going to throw me in prison, I wasn't going to do it. And It was a hard battle. It was much harder than filing for bankruptcy, but I'm glad I did because that's the resourcefulness that I learned that allowed me to find extra cash flow for my own situation to dig out of a $16,000 a month hole to getting back into positive cash flow. And that's why when people come to me, every entrepreneur will come to me and say, "Chris, I'm a little bit embarrassed about my situation." It doesn't matter how many thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars a year they make, they'll still say they're embarrassed. And they're like, "Listen, you can't have been any worse than I was." I'm probably the one financial guy that'll say I've been worse than anybody that I've ever met with, and and that's okay. I can't judge you for it, and that's where I can see it from a very optimistic angle.
Right, because you've been there and you've been worse than where they were. So I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
would you say that so to dig yourself out of that hole? I mean, would you say that like having those better habits and having that better resourcefulness was the reason for that, or was it something else?
I really do. Like, I think that was all part of it. Now, I mean, I did have certain things that I had to say in my head, even though some days were more challenging than others, because there's days I just woke up in despair. I mean, that's why I had to get out and do something, get my body moving, meditate. I remember like I'd do a walking meditation where I just like deep breathing while I'm walking after doing like a little workout. And I remember like just exhaling the words, "Be still and know that I am God." And then taking off one word at a time. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know that. Be still and know. Be still. Be. Like doing that as I'm walking, and just to try to calm my mind down because I'm freaking out, right? But just like Kung Fu Panda, have you ever seen that movie?
No, I haven't.
I've got 6 kids, so now I just quote kid movies instead of cool ones like Tommy Boy and stuff. But,
Oh yeah.
um, but yeah, like in that movie, like the kung fu master said, there are no accidents, right? It's that law of synchronicity. There are no accidents, and uh, and I remember saying that to myself, like, okay, there's no accidents. This is all happening to me for a reason. I don't know why, but I know that I'm going to come out on the other side of this. I don't know how that's going to happen, but I know I will. And that was critical for me because I had to tell myself there was a higher purpose. And I just told myself, I said, hey, listen, if I could help at least one person benefit from all the crap that I went through, if my pain could be somebody else's gain, then that was worth it. And I'll tell you, it's led to now tens of thousands of people's lives that it's helped bless because of it, all because of the crap that I went through, and that struggle. And that's the thing I think is key is that when you start to realize that everything happens to you for a reason, that even if you think something's crappy, you don't know if that might be the better path for you. Because if that hadn't happened to me, I can guarantee I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't be as wise as I am today, and I wouldn't be teaching what I teach today and helping as many people had it not been for that. Because up to then, I thought I had the Midas golden touch. No one could stop me. But since then, I mean, since learning that, hey, I am fallible, I can violate principles like every other human being, and I need to make sure that I'm wise with what I'm doing. That's led to so much more wisdom and patience, and it's allowed me to guide people and save them. I mean, literally, I think I'd probably say in total in the last 6 years of people I've worked with, I've probably helped them make or save at least $100 million cumulatively.
Cool. And it sounds like, I mean, it all connects, right? Like you think, kind of just looking at it like, oh, well, if someone's like really deep in debt or makes really bad financial decisions or doesn't have a lot of cash flow or has a lot of
Mhm.
cash flow, but then the Parkinson's law catches them up, you think, oh, they just had bad luck or they just had bad decisions. But it seems like what you're saying is like it's something deeper, and it pretty much like connects to everything. It connects to your morning routine, your mindset, your relationships, all that good stuff.
Everything. I mean, there's definitely strategy to it, but there's the mindset's huge. Like if you don't have the right mindset, your strategies will create something different than what you want. And that's key. Like I see people out there that teach only strategies that try to be like financial gurus, and then that's all they teach, and then they wonder why people aren't getting the results. But on the flip side, you got people that teach only mindset, but then people don't know what to do with it. You got to
Right.
have both to be able to figure out like that one-two punch of, okay, I've got the right abundant mindset, that steward mentality. Add that with some strategies now, and now we're more intentional. And now my business improves and that grows, and I start making more money there. I bring home more money. I'm actually have more time. I'm more free to do what I want to do, and which is the whole reason why I became a business owner, right? And that's why most people do is they want more control and more freedom, not to live the American nightmare, but to live the American dream.
Yeah. I mean, all that makes a lot of sense to me. Like, I mean, yeah. On one hand, like if it's all mindset, there's nothing concrete to do. But then if it's all like steps and strategies, but you don't fix the root of the problem, then you're just going to find yourself in a worse hole, right? Because like you don't have a better you don't have a better way of going about things. You increase the income, and then you get in even more debt, even more of a hole than you were when the income was low, right?
Exactly. Well, that's why I have even my own clients come from all over U.S. and Canada to my own live events because I'm like, you guys got to make sure you learn the mindset. Even though I give them audios and stuff to study, still I'm like, you need more of this because this mindset stuff is huge. But at the same time, the strategies, like where I teach people tax strategies, where the average entrepreneur finds at least 5 to 10 grand a year that they save in taxes, or how to pay down debt the right way, not the way that everybody else has been teaching, but in a way that actually creates the most biggest bang for your buck and best rate of return. And how do you make more money in your business and all that kind of stuff. How do you save money on insurances? I mean, all that kind of stuff that I look at, right?
Right.
That strategy has to be there. But if I don't have the mindset piece with it, like I watch people don't get nearly the results, especially if I'm teaching them how to make more money. If I don't give them the mindset piece too, like they screw it up, they end up gambling their money away, and then they lose money instead of make money.
And they backslide back to the person they were before they came to you.
You got it.
Oh man. So we covered a lot of really cool stuff today. I mean, my favorite part out of all this, other than I think my second favorite part was the Mint.com thing. I'm going to be signing up to that, and then
Yeah.
just the way you laid it out about spenders, savers, and stewards, and all that, all those little nuggets of the meditation, Tony Robbins, Power Hour, all that stuff.
Mhm.
So I mean, aside from all those cool little tidbits, is there like one big mistake you're seeing over and over with all of these clients you're helping out that it's like the number one thing that just you always see happening?
I would say definitely the tracking the money is the thing that they're not doing. I very rarely ever find someone who's tracking the money properly to where they feel like so confident they know exactly how much money they have, where it's all going, and that allows them to move faster in business too. And so doing that properly, they might be doing a little bit. They might be looking at their balances, but they're not tracking money. And I'll tell you, like if you ever say you're too busy to do it, you're losing at minimum $500 a month or $6,000 a year right there. And I've had people where I had one lady in Silicon Valley, California, who was making a quarter million a year but still broke. Found out she was spending 52 like $5,600 a month eating out. Like
Wow.
5,600. That's
Jeez.
crazy. I mean, it's California still, but that's not. We both know California's not that expensive. you know.
Right. Right. I
Um,
mean, it's not like Dubai or anything.
no. Oh, and even another guy I worked with, a dentist in Virginia. I mean, he was great, but he just wasn't. He was just focused on making money. We found an extra $16,000 a month in his practice, just in his business. On top of the $6,000 a month, we helped him free up. I mean, in total, we helped him save over 300 grand that year. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that if you're aware of what's going on, you're watching what's happening. That's a great start. I mean, if everybody would do that, man, when I coach them, it makes it so much easier.
So they can at least find the problem, right? Isn't that what like the drug addicts and stuff say? Like the first step is knowing you have a problem or admitting you
It,
have a problem.
it's that awareness, right?
Yep.
Once you're aware of what's going on, like it's such a big eye opener. And people find money just because they track, not because they spend less, but just because a lot of times they'll say that they're just more accountable and whatever extra they have, they'll say, you know what? Maybe I'll put that money away. Maybe I'll keep that in emergencies just in case, especially if you're a business owner. It's not just emergencies, you need it for opportunities. And a lot of times you miss opportunities because you don't have the money laying around, right?
Oh yeah. And
And
and I
that
mean,
costs you money there.
and I've noticed that too. Like, I mean, I probably haven't gone back as much as I should, but I've noticed like looking back in like my business, like looking back in statements, 'cause I don't have Mint.com set up, but like
Yeah.
looking back at like memberships I'm not using and stuff like that, and little like
Hmm.
$80 a month things in my business, and my attitude used to be, oh whatever, it's $80 a month, like who cares what that adds up to? But then I say, oh, but once I actually drill down, there's like 10 or 20 of those things that are dinging me $80 every single month, and what is that every year, and what could that have built up to for 5 or 10 years, like you said, not just to get a higher number but to have the peace of mind to be able to use it for whatever opportunity. I mean, just kind
It,
of a different way of thinking.
it all adds up. Yeah, I had a graphic designer who we found an extra $1,500 a month from the little things that just added up. And we didn't have to sacrifice their life at all. Like they still were able to be free and do stuff, still go out and eat and things like that. But I mean, $1,500 a month, that's 18 grand a year, back in your pocket that you didn't even know you were losing in the first place.
And imagine like over a lifetime, like how many cars that would buy, or how many college
Seriously.
educations for the kids or something.
That's true. I mean, 18 grand a year. I mean, after like 15 years, that's over $250,000, right?
Yeah. Phew. So all right. So I mean, you have all these cool success stories and all these cool strategies. I mean, I want to send people over to you so they can find out all about like what it is you do, what it is you sell, about these seminars and this coaching stuff that you do. So where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, if you want to hear like some actual real specific strategies, kind of like what some we mentioned today, but a few more, like even like how to pay off debt and things like that, you can go to www.moneyripples.com. That's MONEYRIPPLES.com. And right there on the front page, you can actually get the ebook called Beyond Rice and Beans: 7 Secrets to Free Up Cash Today. That's kind of my slap at Dave Ramsey right there.
Nice.
And then also, like, if you like podcasts, I mean, if you like, you go on iTunes, look up the Chris Miles Money Show, and you can listen to stuff there too.
Cool. The Chris Miles Money Show. And while you're doing the Power of Hour and the mantras, perfect compliment, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, cool. Thanks for being on the show, Chris, and sharing all your cool knowledge and wisdom.
Yeah, you bet, Robert. Appreciate it.
You got it.